Dressage Federation, Foundation Level 1, Test 1, Marnie riding Evie. A. Enter at the working walk. Proceed down center line to X without halting. X to H, continue working walk along diagonal. H to C, continue working walk to C. After C, turn right on the quarter line. B to F. Between B and F, leg yield left to the rail between B and F. Between B and F, circle right 20 meters. Continue working walk to K. KXM, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and down. M to C, working walk, past C, turn left onto the quarter line. E to K, leg yield right to the rail between E and K. Between E and K, circle left 20 meters. Continue working walk to A. A to C, 3-loop serpentine. HXF, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. F to K, working walk. K to X, proceed along diagonal to X. Turn down center line. Between X and G, halt and salute. Dismount, stand quietly for a moment. You may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head, run up the stirrups, and leave the arena leading the horse at the horse's shoulder. Once again, we want to thank Marnie for being such a great sport and doing all this for us. Now we're going to go through the test again, and this time we will talk about it, what the horse is doing, what the rider's doing, and then we will score it. Of course, the first thing I ask myself when I look at a horse entering the ring is whether or not they are moving correctly enough over their back to be able to score. So looking at this horse, I would say that he is. Does he have more development to go? Yes. But Marnie's doing a beautiful job with him. He stays calm and relaxed. The underside of the neck, you see, stays completely relaxed. He's really in quite a nice working walk for his level of development. Now, when we see the horse from the side here, we can see that his belly still hangs down a little bit. There's a little bit of a dip still behind the saddle. So this horse has more top line to build. But right there, that's a very nice working walk. He's stepping deeply up underneath himself, staying completely relaxed. So that's really, for this level, a really nice working walk. You can see he resists there a little bit when she makes the turn, but nothing terrible. Now, as for the leg yield here, he needs to have a little more step through. He doesn't really, kind of starts and hesitates. So it doesn't really get, it's more of a, finally there, he kind of throws the shoulder out and gets one or two steps. So that would score fairly low. It should start and be consistent all the way along. Once again, that's what we're always looking for, is the consistency of the gaits. Now, this horse's walk is actually, quite consistent when he settles down. Once in a while, the harder things trip him up a little bit. But especially for the type of horse this is, big, heavy, more draft type, they can be very difficult. And it is even more important that they become over their top lines, because actually Friesians and horses like this, their backs are actually weaker than other horses because they're very long in the back. Many of them were not intended to actually be ridden, but were carriage horses. So we have to do a lot of work to get this kind of big horse up over his back and get him working so that we can protect him. But that was a pretty nice circle there. Once again, the rhythm is quite good throughout all this. I like how Marnie is really stretching up in this test. She looks like she's lifted herself a little bit. Hands are coming a little closer together. And of course, that's all shows where the horse's level of training is. If I see that the rider still has to keep widening their hands a lot, it tells me they're not completely confirmed in this. But this is really a nice stretch, and how I would like it to see. There's a bit of a lengthening. He goes right down. There's no hesitation in the stretch. He can have a little more fluidity in the step, but it's really quite good. And once again, you can see how relaxed the underside of his neck is. When you see most Friesians, they've been overbent for so long. Usually they're just pulling with their shoulders, and we see this huge development of the underside of the neck. But this is really good. Now we can see he it seems to be just before every turn, he loses a little bit, maybe lifts his head up and loses engagement. Losing engagement, however, is different than just going hollow. A horse can be over his back, like you see this one, working pretty well, but once in a while he just loses that lift in the back. So when I say loses engagement, that's what I mean. He loses that lift and everything kind of flattens out for a minute. Now that leg yield, once again, about the same as the other one. Could have stepped over a little more actively. His shoulder came out a little bit, so that would not be a high scoring movement there. Once again, he comes back to a nice working walk, even though he lifts his head up and down here a little bit, but he's taking the nice same step all the time. That's what we're looking for, and that's also what improves those artistic marks that are so important to the test. But this is all very pleasant, very relaxed. Good circle there. So once again, we can see how we can almost tick off the metronome to this one. And that's what we want to see. We should be able to set a metronome to any horse's beat. If the horse is well trained, you can stay right with that metronome. And of course, once again, those changes in tempo have a lot to do with the artistic score. Just like watching a ballet dancer. If you saw a ballet dancer who kept tripping while they were dancing, falling apart, it breaks the illusion, of perfection. And that's what we're looking for in the arts, is an illusion of perfection, you might say, getting as close to it as we can. Has a little trip every now and then. Got a little hollow, and that's what caused that. He tried to turn. He tends to come up a little bit on those turns and loses it. Falls over his front feet just a little bit. So once again, we can see how this horse's belly is still dropped a little bit. There's still more development behind the back that's going to happen. But this is a very nice working walk for this horse at this level. Remember, this is foundation level 1. So, these are the kind of horses that should be working here. Horses that are just beginning to be entered into the show ring. And that's what we're looking for. That is one thing I noticed about the rider here. As she makes her turn, and that could be causing some of the problems, she tends to not let her shoulder come around enough as the horse begins to make the turn, and sometimes that can make a difference. Remember, the rider's shoulder should always parallel the shoulders of the horse. But once again, not a bad stretcher. This one wasn't quite as good as the first one. The first one went right down and actually lengthened a little bit about halfway through. But that's what we're looking for. We want that lengthening to go right down at a steady tempo, and also for the stride itself to lengthen at the same time while the horse stretches forward. And then as we bring the horse back up into the working gait, we should see it come back into that normal gait, as we might call it. Very good on that turn. Good working walk there. Now, once again, that would be a fault because the horse pushed his hindquarters to the outside. But on the other hand, the horse stands quite quietly. And this is what we're looking for. The horse can come in the ring without being a nervous wreck. The rider can work with it. So great job from Marnie on that one. Now we'll go through this test again and we'll score it. Dressage Federation, Foundation Level 1, Test 1. Marnie Makaborski riding Evie. A, enter at the working walk. Proceed down center line to X without halting. X to H, continue working walk along diagonal. A little weaving on the center line. 5. H to C, continue working walk to C. After C, turn right on the quarter line. B to F. Between B and F, leg yield left to the rail between B and F. A little resistance on the turn. 6. Move before that was a 5. Between B and F, circle right 20 meters. Leg yield 4. Continue working walk to K. circle and working walk 6. KXM, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and down. Change of rein. M to C, 6. Working walk, past C, turn left onto the quarter line. E to 6. K, leg heeled right to the rail between E and K. Between E and K, circle left 20 meters. 3 on the leg yield. Continue working walk to A. Rhythm could have been a little more consistent in the position of the frame. 5. A to C, 3 loop serpentine. HXF, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. Good serpentine, but with a little loss of rhythm and a stumble. 4. F to K, working walk. Stretch had a good rhythm and some lengthening, but could have stretched a little bit deeper. 5. K to X, proceed along diagonal to X. F to K, working walk 6, turn down center line. Between X and G, halt and salute. 6 on the diagonal. Flattens and not stand quietly for a moment. 4, you may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head, run up the stirrups, and leave the arena leading the horse at the horse's shoulder. Rider should keep the reins in both hands as she leads out of the arena, but that was a good job. So that last dismount and halt would have been a 6. So now let's talk about our collective marks as we watch the horse in the background here. Horse's correct level of physical development for the level entered. And I would put that as a sufficient. So I'm going to call that a 5. Can the horse develop? Much, much more. Once again, this horse still has a little dip behind the saddle. We still see the belly sort of hanging down a little bit. But he was certainly well enough developed to ride this test at this level. Harmony between horse and rider. I'm going to put a 6 on this. There were some moments where the horse just comes up and down, but really it was quite good. Only once in a while we have to see her change her hand position on this one and get a little wide, or he resists upwards a little bit. But that was really quite good. Rider's correct level of physical development for the level entered. This would include the rider's seat and use of aids. And I would clearly say that she's well fit enough. She could develop her position a little more in her upper body, holding herself up, which she does well in this test. But remember, as a judge, I have to act like I've never seen this before. But this is much improved. So once again, I'm going to put a 5 on there. Sufficient, but could be improved. Once again, as a judge, I see, the arms, elbows coming out a little bit. Reins could be a little shorter. Sometimes the heels stay up a little bit. But mostly, like what you see right there, is really quite a good position. Artistic impression. Now here, of all these tests we've done, this is the first one that I can feel like I can give a fairly high collective mark to there on the artistic impression. You notice it was much less distracting to watch this one than it was others. Once again, it's like watching a ballet or any kind of performance of anything. When we see the sets fall down on a stage, it distracts everything, right? So when the horse stumbles, it distracts us. So that's really what we're looking for, that we're drawn in visually, into it as a work of art, as you would any other work of art. I mean, imagine if somebody came up and just put a big blotch in the middle of the Mona Lisa. Well, it would distract you from seeing the beauty of the painting, wouldn't it? The same thing here is that. But this is really in the right direction, though. I got a really nice sense of this. There's some ways to go, but this is going to be a 5. That's a really excellent work, once again, for this level. There's improvement that can be made, but that was good. The calculated score for that test would have been a 57.14, so quite respectable. I would tell you that those of you who have not been in dressage very long, for someone like me who's been in it for 50 years, the changes that we have seen, to give you an example of how absurd the scoring is today compared to what it used to be. For instance, I have a USDF silver medal, which I started out to get. It took me 2 years to achieve the scores. Now it seems like very little. You had to get 4 scores at 60% at Pre-St. George and at 4th level. It took me 2 years to get that. Now, when I say that, I was riding the horse. I won Horse of the Year in Region 2 on the horse, and I won Horse of the Year at Pre-St. George on the horse in Region 2. So I'm on the winning horse, and it took me 2 years to break 60% 4 times. That gives you some idea of how much it has changed. Nowadays, we see horses going into the ring completely upside down, and getting a 90%. So this is how far things have come and what we're trying to get back to. So as I said, a score of 57.14 is quite respectable. For my first 20 years in dressage, it was very rare. People got very excited to see anybody getting even a 70% on a ride as things begin to push up. And then, of course, in the 80s and 90s, we saw this absurd ramping up of all this where suddenly scores are going through the roof. And that was really based on the fact that dressage has now become really kind of a breed sport. You have to have this type of horse in order to do it, in order to score well. And if you have that type of horse, you will score well no matter what. So it's turned into something, as I often say, that's unrecognizable to me any longer. But I think what we're doing here is going to help us get back to the real core of what dressage is really all about. And I hope you are all enjoying going through this process with me. Thank you, and we'll have another one up soon.